What we have here is the all-new Tekton, Nissan's answer to the Hyundai Creta, Kia Seltos and the Maruti Victoris. Now to experience this car in great detail, Nissan has organized an extended test drive for us from Chandigarh to Leh, a distance over 700 kilometers across various road and traffic conditions. This one's going to be an exhaustive review, so stay tuned. The Nissan Tekton is a badge-engineered version of the Renault Duster, which means that both these cars are largely identical. Both are built at the same factory, both share their engine, their chassis, their interiors and several other bits. Think of it something like the Toyota Hyryder and the Maruti Grand Vitara, or the Volkswagen Taygun and the Skoda Kushaq, and you'll get the reference. However, Nissan has certainly enhanced the Tekton styling and given it a distinct Japanese flavor. This one borrows several design traits from the flagship SUV, the Nissan Patrol. The grille design with the connected light bar element and the red insert on this 1.3 turbo variant certainly looks striking. It's even got functional air scoops on the bumper, and it also gets fog lamps, a feature that not many cars are offering these days. I'm honestly a big fan of this sculpted bonnet, which gives the design a muscular, aggressive feel. On the sides you have these attractive 18-inch wheels with chunky high-profile tires. You also get 212mm of ground clearance, which is really useful in hostile terrain. In addition, you have this T280 badge on the front fender, which signifies the 280 Nm of torque this 1.3-litre turbo petrol engine produces. Moving to the side, you have this interesting applique with Himalayas kind of intricately detailed into them. It is actually quite cool when you look at it in person. Moving on, you have these wide sculpted arches, and then you have the pillar-mounted door handle linking ties to Nissan SUVs of yore. Its connected tail lamp design looks most similar to the Nissan Petrol SUV, and I think the execution is spot on. The Tekton is not the largest SUV in its class, but it strikes a nice balance between road presence and urban usability. Quite honestly, its design is likely to be one of its key selling points. And before jumping in, a quick word on its luggage carrying capability. Behind this electrically operable tailgate is a massive boot. As you can see, the Tekton can easily swallow a cabin bag vertically, and there's a lot more room to spare for many more. In terms of boot space, it is 518 liters, which is simply class best and ideal for those long drives. The Tekton gets a full-size spare tire too. That said, here's what the interiors are like. Nissan has really done well to dress up the interior of the Tekton and give it a higher degree of differentiation compared to the Renault Duster. Now, although the layout and the materials are pretty much the same as the Duster, what the Tekton gets is a different color scheme. You have burgundy, you have gold, and you have this light cream color, which enhances the cabin's premium feel. An interesting detail, an Easter egg if you will, are these two vertical lines and three horizontal lines here, which stand for the numbers 2 and 3 in Japanese, which read out Ni and San. Now the first thing that I must talk about is the driving position. It is actually spot on. Right in my field of vision is the bonnet, and that really adds a good degree of confidence, especially for newer drivers. The ergonomics are good, everything falls to hand rather nicely, and the visibility all around is actually very good. One little irritant though is that this large plastic panel out here could hamper the field of vision of drivers who like to sit really high up. The digital instrument cluster is quite nice and easy to read, with multiple screen options including a full map view, which is very useful while navigating. Also, while the Duster has a rather inconvenient bar-like tachometer, the Nissan has a much clearer, more straightforward readout. I also really like the fact that there are a lot of physical buttons for functions like climate control, volume and audio, And my personal favorite, there's one to turn on all ADAS functions or switch them to a pre-configured setting. More on the ADAS in just a bit. Over the course of this journey, we noticed a few quirks with this car as far as the practicality and the storage areas are concerned. Now, the first thing, a good thing, is that the phone holder out here, the wireless charging pad, is cooled actually, so it prevents your phone from heating up. Now, that's a neat touch. You have two USB-C slots out here as well as a 12-volt socket, although there's no USB-A slot out here. The second thing is 1-liter bottles cannot be stored vertically in the door pads. As a result, you'll hear the water or beverage in the bottle sloshing around while driving. At the rear though, they can be stored vertically. Then there are deep cup holders out here, enough for knickknacks like this walkie and some other items. And then you have a rather large storage area out here, enough to put your sunglasses and some other bits. The glove box is a good size and it's quite deep, although like the older Duster, half of it is blocked by the fuse box. Now, getting into the backseat of the Tekton is a bit of a challenge due to the high step and the narrow gap between the seat base as well as the pillar. But once you're seated here, it's quite a comfortable place to be. Now, there's good support, the backrest is nicely angled, and there's ample space beneath the front seats to tuck your feet. Now, unlike some of its competitors, this is not a very wide car, and as a result, this space is best for 2 adults rather than 3. Having a third adult here will make this space a bit cramped. That said, all the 3 passengers will have individual headrests as well as 3-pointed seat belts. Other amenities here include front seat back pockets, rear AC vents, 2 USB charging ports, an armrest as well as a phone holder. And on a scenic drive like this, the massive panoramic sunroof makes a huge difference. It just opens up the outside world. Even the rear passengers can enjoy the vistas and the mountain ranges. 2 things I found missing here. One is the BOSS function for the front passenger seat. Now the seat is already electrically adjustable, so having a BOSS function would have just enhanced usability for the boss seated out here. And the second thing is sunshades. It misses sunshades. These aside, the Tekton is a well-equipped car and it matches its rivals as far as features go. The infotainment gets native Google integration, including Gemini voice assistant too, and it is pretty easy to use on the whole. I just wish Nissan had a better 360-degree camera. Its quality is below par. The safety kit includes ADAS. Now, we used ADAS a fair bit on this journey, especially lane keep assist as well as adaptive cruise control. Now, what we discovered is that this car doesn't really track in the center of the lane. It keeps weaving from one side of the lane to the other. So this system needs a bit more spit and polish. It is not as sophisticated as that in the Kia Seltos or the Hyundai Creta. We used the adaptive cruise control in the 1.3 version, which maintained a safe distance from the vehicle ahead and slowed the car progressively when the traffic slowed down. However, the build-up of speed back to the preset cruising speed felt a touch slow, irrespective of whether the drive mode was eco or normal. And like the Duster, its badge-engineered sibling, the Tekton also has been awarded 5 stars by Bharat NCAP, thus strengthening its safety credentials. Priced between 10.5 and 18.5 lakhs, the Tekton is 10 to 50,000 pricier than the Renault Duster. Looking at its variant mix, the Tekton is available in 12 variants. 6 of those are for the 1-liter manual version, 2 for the 1.3 manual, and 4 for the 1.3 automatic, suggesting a clear focus on the 1-liter manual version. So let's start this drive review with the 1-liter turbo version. There are 2 turbo petrol engines to choose from, a 1-liter 3-cylinder unit and a 1.3-liter 4-cylinder unit. The 1-liter turbo petrol engine found in the Nissan Tekton is shared with the Magnite. Of course, there have been some enhancements in this one, and it still uses port injection. This engine is available only with a 6-speed manual gearbox in the Tekton. To handle the Tekton's weight as well as the engine's power delivery, the Tekton makes do with much shorter gearing compared to the 1.3 versions. And quite honestly, this setup works quite well for a point A to point B commuter. That said, this being a small capacity turbo petrol engine, this does suffer from a fair bit of turbo lag. And you'll especially feel this lag while climbing steep inclines, where you will have to slip the clutch and build up the revs in order to get a move on. Even on winding hilly roads like this or on fast-moving highways, you will have to work the gearbox in order to ensure that the engine is on the boil at all times. The turbo boost feels the strongest beyond 3000 rpm, which is quite high up the rev range. And the 6-speed manual gearbox does have a fair bit of resistance. It is a bit on the notchier side, and it is not as smooth or as slick as its Japanese or Korean rivals. Even the clutch warrants special effort on your part to modulate and ensure a smoother drive experience. And now, time to jump into the 1.3 version. The 1.3-litre engine expectedly feels a lot more refined and a lot gutsier than the 1-litre. Performance is a lot more effortless, and quite honestly, if you enjoy driving, it is definitely worth the stretch. That said, this engine is not completely devoid of turbo lag. Compared to the 1-litre turbo, lag is well contained. Still, there's no getting away from the fact that turbo lag is not completely eliminated in this one. Under stop-start conditions on steep inclines, even this 1.3-litre engine struggles to get a move on. On more than one occasion, while climbing steep slopes, its weak bottom end came to light. We noticed the engine revs falling close to 700 rpm, and it took its own sweet time despite the throttle input to build up the revs and pull the car forward. Full throttle, full throttle. The turbo spools a bit earlier than in the 1-litre version, and boost comes in strong once the revs cross 2500 rpm. Once the turbos are at full song, this car builds momentum rather nicely. I quite like the whooshing sound this engine makes, especially at higher RPMs. It's very tuner car-like, but if I'm being honest, some people might find it a bit intrusive. This 1.3-litre turbo is mated to a 6-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission. Having a wet clutch, the shifts feel very smooth and very seamless. You don't feel the transition between the shifts. That said, this gearbox is rather slow to respond. That, combined with its character of shifting to the highest possible gear at the earliest, does give this car a rather lethargic, non-responsive feel. And you'll often find yourself reaching out to the paddle shifters to make that quick overtake or to fill in that gap. There are two drive modes, Comfort and Eco. The latter makes the drive experience duller still. Driving enthusiasts will certainly miss a Sport mode that would have sharpened the gearbox and made the Tekton feel more responsive. Thankfully though, you can pull the right paddle and engage manual mode, where you take full control over the transmission. And on the fantastic mountain roads, this was the mode I found myself using the most. Of course, the transmission will shift automatically if the revs fall too low or to prevent its engine from over-revving. In city conditions though, this engine and gearbox combination works rather nicely. Even the creep function is very well judged and won't take you by surprise like we've seen in some of its rivals. And like I said, the gearbox smoothness and seamlessness works well within city confines. Over the course of this journey, one thing that I can tell you is that its aircon isn't all that effective. Now, despite keeping the temperature at its lowest setting, the aircon does take quite a while to cool this cabin down. What's nice though are the front ventilated seats, which feel far more effective than the car's central aircon. And speaking of seats, what I can tell you is that over the course of this road trip, I've been very comfortable in these seats. The cushioning is well judged and the seats are very supportive all around. Both front seats also get lumbar adjustment. We haven't managed to time the Nissan Tekton on this drive. However, we have tested the Renault Duster extensively, and here are the numbers. Expectedly, the 1.3 manual is the quickest to sprint from 0 to 100 km per hour. The wet clutch DCT doesn't allow for aggressive launches, and as a result, its timings don't seem all that impressive. While the 1 litre's times are at par with the 1.5 NA versions of the Creta and Seltos. Now, while this 700 km odd road trip might not be an ideal real-world scenario to give you an indicated fuel efficiency number. What I can tell you is both these cars are managing a figure of just around 11 kilometers per litre as per the trip computer. And once again, for your reference, we'll put the Renault Duster's real-world tested figures on your screen. And mind you, both these cars have the same engine tune and are pretty much the same. So that is something what you can expect with the Nissan Tekton in the real world. As with the Renault Duster, Nissan has nailed the ride and handling balance with this one. Unlike some European cars which have that slight underlying firmness at low speeds, the Tekton has a nice, soft, pliant ride quality. What's impressive is just how it deals with bad roads and road imperfections. It just gobbles up everything in its stride. And even while tackling those sharp potholes, yes, you might hear the suspension thud a bit, but the passengers seldom feel the jolt inside the cabin. And while driving on these twisty roads, what I can confidently tell you is that the handling is very predictable. It feels like a tidy handler and it feels very eager to change direction. The Tekton's electronic power steering has two steering modes, light and heavy. Now the heavy mode adds a bit more resistance and a bit more weight, but personally I prefer the light mode where it feels light, effort-free and still remains very precise. Now being an electronic power steering unit, there are no harsh kickbacks like you would have experienced in the previous generation of the Nissan Terrano or the older Duster. And as far as feel goes, this is one of the nicer units in the segment. On our route to Leh, we experienced what we think is one of the best road surfaces in the country. Still, we did encounter some battered patches randomly, for which we had to drop the pace to crawling speeds. And each time, the Tekton's brakes impressively shed speed. Even the pedal feel is very natural. If you love to drive, this is one of those cars that you're surely gonna like. After this 700-kilometer elaborate first drive, it's finally time to summarize the Nissan Tekton. Now this is a handsome-looking SUV with a premium interior and an expansive feature list. Now cabin space might not be class-leading, but it is comfortable for 4 adults. That along with a massive 518-litre boot, which is not only class best, but it is ideal for those long road trips. And speaking of road trips, the Tekton's ride and handling balance is simply outstanding. You'll love to drive this one. Ride comfort is excellent and it handles well too. That said, driving enthusiasts will long for a bit more performance and more responsiveness out of both these engines. And those who drive a lot will certainly yearn for better fuel efficiency. Speaking of which, neither Renault nor Nissan offer a diesel engine. And while the Duster is likely to come with a hybrid powertrain, Nissan has ruled out the possibility of a hybrid powertrain with the Tekton. But if you look at the Tekton from a broader perspective, it is a rather competent car. If you are in the market for a mid-size SUV today, you are simply spoiled for choices. So why don't you tell us, will you pick the Tekton or will you choose any other rival? Leave us a comment down below.